which will be a hybrid meeting conducted remotely via WebEx and physically here in the Council Chamber, the Guildhall, Derry, on Wednesday, 14th December at 2 p.m. Alderman Alan Breslin.
Here.
Alderman Devaney.
Here.
Alderman Guy. Alderman Guy. Alderman Hussey. Alderman Kerrigan. Alderman McCready. Alderman McMorris.
Here.
Alderman Thompson.
Here.
Alderman Wark. Councillor Jason Barr.
John Way.
Councillor Raymond Barr.
Here.
Councillor John Boyle.
Here.
Councillor Michaela Boyle.
And Shaw.
Councillor Carr. Councillor Cusack.
Here.
Councillor Dobbins. Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Doyle. Councillor Duffy.
And Shaw.
Councillor Edwards.
Apologies.
Councillor Farrell.
Here.
Councillor Ferguson.
Here.
Councillor Fleming. Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Harkin. Councillor Heaney. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Dan Kelly.
Shaw, Philip.
Councillor Logue.
And Shaw.
Councillor McGinley.
And Shaw.
Councillor McGowan.
And Shaw.
Councillor Maguire. Councillor McHugh.
Shaw and en route.
Thank you. Councillor McKinney.
Apologies.
Councillor Mooney.
Here.
Councillor Norris. Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Riley. Councillor Sinoy Barr. Councillor Tierney.
Here, Philip.
Just go back over a few of those. Mayor, Alderman Guy. Alderman Hussey. Alderman Kerrigan.
Here, Philip.
Alderman McCready. Alderman Wark. Councillor Jason Barr. Councillor Raymond Barr, I've got, sorry, apologies. And Councillor Dobbins. Councillor Emmett Doyle. Councillor Fleming. And Councillor Kieran Maguire. And Councillor Sinoy Barr. Okay. Over to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Philip. And just the broadcasting notice now. I would like to remind everyone present at this meeting in the Guildhall or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with Council protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of these images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the Council's privacy notice may be found on the Council website. Okay, thank you. Declarations of members' interest. If people want to pop them in the chat box and we can pick them up, that would be fantastic. So moving on then to chairperson's business. I don't have an awful lot of chairperson's business for this meeting. I actually only want to mention one item, and that is just to send condolences to the family of Ina, who was a refugee from Ukraine who had been here. She had come here as one of the very first refugees because she was sick. Unfortunately, she got sicker and sadly passed away a few weeks ago. She was returned to Ukraine, thankfully through the generosity of many Derry people who were part of a fundraising effort to get her home, as was her last wish to return to Ukraine. So I thank the Derry people for that. But I just want to send my thoughts and prayers to Ina's family. I did have the pleasure of of meeting Ina in Cultureland during Ukraine National Day. Very early on in the term as mayor, and she was a very inspirational woman. So, if possible, I would like to send a letter from this council just expressing our condolences to her daughter and to her family. So, that's the only piece of chairperson's business I have. Moving on to what other people have asked. So I'm going to pass to Councillor Harkin, who wishes to raise an issue around the healthcare workers who are currently on strike.
Thanks for letting me in, Mayor. And first of all, can I and we join you in sending our condolences to Ina's family, and totally agree with your proposal to send a letter as well, expressing our sincere condolences. And look, everybody knows that the health care workers were out on strike on Monday, and I want to commend NIPSA, Unison and GMB members who were all out in very cold temperatures, standing up for a pay raise, standing up for safe staffing and fighting to save the health service. And tomorrow we'll see a huge strike by RCN members, and I want to commend them as well. And I look forward to the special council meeting on the 19th, where we will hear directly from representatives of the healthcare trade unions speaking about why they're going on strike. And it's clear that there is overwhelming support for our health and social care workers and for their demands. And people can see that their fight for a decent pay and safe staffing is connected to the overall fight to protect and strengthen the health service going into the future. Everybody is aware of the pressures that exist right now on the health service and on GP services. And that's why this strike isn't just a news story. It's just not another strike. It's about the future of our society. And while the vast majority of people have been very, very supportive of the strike, there is a tiny minority who I believe are attempting to demonise our health and social care workers and blame them for the crisis that we now face in the health service. I was absolutely disgusted by the Belfast newsletter editor's comments, Ben Lowry. He was on, as people probably know, BBC Radio 4, basically encouraging strike breaking, doing his best to undermine the strike, claiming that promoting the lie that nurses are very well paid, and promoting the idea that nobody backed this strike. We think that Ben Lowry should resign his role as the editor of the newsletter. He's an absolutely disgrace, and it's disgraceful that he got airtime as well to put forward the nonsense that he spoke the other day. And hopefully he won't get any airtime tomorrow when the RCN and the nurses are out on strike. The second thing is the pay increase that was announced on the eve of the strike was, again, this is a pay offer that is being imposed because it's been rejected by almost all the healthcare trade unions. And indeed, that's why they're on strike. And the response was overwhelmingly negative in response to the decision by civil servants here at the last minute to push through this pay award. And it was very clearly designed to undermine the strike and create the impression that nurses and health and social care workers were getting a great raise while everybody else is struggling. This was part of the effort to demonise the strikers and to undermine their efforts. So shame on those Stormont officials that made that decision at the last minute to try and make it seem as if the demands of the health and social care workers had been made. And then finally, I think it's absolutely disgraceful that Tory ministers refused to have serious discussions with the RCN and other trade unions on the eve of the strike. It was a further slap in the face to everybody that works in our health service, and it's also a slap in the face to all of us who depend on the health service. So finally, I just want to encourage everybody to, if they can, join the RCN tomorrow on the picket lines and to show their support. This is as I said before, not just a strike. This is a fight for our future and about what the future is going to look like. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Councillor Jackson.
Mayor, and I want to, on behalf of Sinn Féin, send our solidarity to all the healthcare workers who took industrial action earlier in the week, and for the nurses that are due to go on strike tomorrow. And I suppose you'll start off by saying that I declare an interest as a healthcare worker, somebody who's worked in the health service for almost 20 years. And over those 20 years, I have seen the pressures grow year on year. Staff are expected to do a lot more, and the pressures that are being placed on individuals and small teams is immense. Now, it's completely disgraceful that a vital service are forced to take industrial action, forced to stand on picket lines in some sub-zero conditions. They get a modest pay increase and they fight for safe staffing levels. Essentially, the healthcare workers are fighting to save our health service and fighting against privatisation. And we as a party, and hopefully we as a council, will stand full square beside them. We seen in 2019 when the health care professionals all came together and took a stand, demanding safe staffing levels, demanding pay parity, and though that same fight is continuing today, and that fight isn't going away. And I suppose it's easy for us to focus on the picket lines and the industrial action that's currently taking place on the pickets, but all our healthcare, all our unions within our health service, a lot of them are involved in industrial action which stops short of strike, and it goes against the ethos that many of our healthcare professionals are the reasons why they're involved in providing healthcare for everyone within our city and district. I know that there's people that aren't carrying out tasks, aren't carrying out roles that they would normally do as part of this action short of strike, and they're uncomfortable doing that. It's the only action, the only power that they've got, and I think that we should. I know a lot of the focus was on Monday and the action from RCN tomorrow, but we have to be mindful that the action short of strike is continuing, and our workers within our health service are being impacted, and they're making decisions that they're not comfortable with on an ongoing basis, and that's something that we as a council should be recognising and standing full square behind them. Good Chair, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Harkin for raising this issue. I'll start off by declaring an interest as my wife is a nurse, and I'm very proud to say she will be joining the RCN picket line tomorrow. I know and see on a daily basis how nurses feel when they come home from work, how run down they are, and how under pressure they are when they're at their work. Christopher talked there about action short of strike, which is continuing, and I fully support the fact that it is happening. But imagine in any other profession that people were using industrial action to finish their shift on time, to take a lunch break, or to do their general duties. And that's what they're calling action short of strike. That's something that the majority of us and the majority of society take for granted, that when we're scheduled to work a particular shift, when the clock strikes, we go home. Nurses don't have that luxury and haven't had that luxury for quite some time. And I think it's absolutely shocking that they have to go down this road. I know from speaking to many nurses that when the ballot papers were sent out, many of them struggled with whether or not they wanted to go on strike, not because they didn't support the trade union movement in their reasoning for strike, but because they were worried about their patients whenever they were on strike. and many nurses, and I hope members will agree with me, many nurses don't actually go on to the nursing profession as some sort of career move or some sort of luxury profession. It's because they've got a loving and caring nature, and they want to look after people when they're sick. And for many of them, it's more of a vocation than a career move. And in that way, we should be standing up for them. We should be backing them, and we should be doing all we can to help them. Councillor Harkin said that this strike was about our future. It's about the future of the health service, and that's really, really important. If these demands are met over this particular strike action, it would hopefully change the way we have all known the health service and allow the nurses and all the healthcare workers to work under reasonable conditions and with reasonable support from their management, which they're not getting at the moment. We fully send our support within the SDLP and our solidarity to all of the healthcare workers and all of the workers in all different sectors which have unfortunately found themselves on picket lines over recent months and will continue to do so. There has been a lot of talk in the media, and Councillor Harkin referenced some of it, in relation to the pay raise that nurses are demanding, which we think that they're more than worth and more than entitled to. But this is also about safe staffing levels for nurses and for people who work in the healthcare profession. They go hand in glove, because it's with safe staffing levels that the nurses will find that pressure will be lifted off them. And unless the management listen to all of the demands of the workers, I can't see this action stopping anyway soon. We in the SDLP fully support and fully send our solidarity to all of the workers who have found themselves on picket lines over this last while. And I think as a council, it will be important to those RCN nurses and all healthcare workers who are heading out on strike tomorrow to hear that this has been brought up here today, and that as a council corporate body, we send our full support and solidarity with them there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in, and I agree wholeheartedly with a lot of the previous speakers. Our party does support a fair salary or a fair pay increase for our healthcare workers and a safer working environment, because the environment that they're working in at the moment is probably very, very difficult. And you hear of healthcare workers working through their breaks, their lunch times, and stuff like this. And I know that a lot of our healthcare workers out there, probably when they did get the ballot to strike, you know, when they looked at it, and I know many of the nurses, and really it goes against the spirit of their ethos of, you know, helping for our patients who need help. But we in the DEP are very supportive of the action that they're taking in light of looking for a fair increase and safer working environment. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Devaney. Alderman McCready.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Can I declare an interest of a family member who works for the Trust? And that aside, I think we're in a deeply shameful time in society when we have to stand outside our hospitals with our NHS staff, given that, and evidently I managed to stand with them on Monday with many members and other supporters there, and even listening to what does it actually mean when you consider and talk about safe staffing levels, when they tell you the absolute horror and risk and what they bear on a daily basis. It does bring the reality to the fore. And secondly is fair and equitable pay. So during any member of society throughout even the Northwest region that utilise the services within the NHS, that we rely implicitly on the NHS staff with our most dearest loved ones. And I think it's maybe only right and proper that we as a council corporate, as members and those in society, that in the NHS staff's most darkest hour in their time of need, that we should be reciprocating firm and fair to stand with them, to call for that safe staffing levels and fair and equitable remuneration, and to be paid fairly, and to be valued members of the NHS, to be valued members of our society. And often that's overlooked on a daily basis, but sometimes we roll it out on large occasions on post-pandemic, where we clap for them. Well, that clap right now is waning very thin because those same people we clap for are leaving their shifts outside of their time, not getting paid any real living wages, and then they have to go via a food bank. That is shameful in our society. And lastly, Madam Mayor, is then, well, what can be done? Things can be done and put in place. The then Health Minister, Robin Swan, did outlay of how you can remediate this. But it needs one thing. It needs a multi-year budget to really try and rebuild the NHS, because it is broken. It is systemically broken within. And you need to put together solutions which need to be funded. No government, no funding. No government, no decisions. So we can say we support our NHS and stand with them on a picket line, but not to take real, tangible action within your government is a reprehensible position that I've heard in these chambers. So thank you, Madam Mayor. My party stands right beside them. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman McCready. Councillor Donnelly.
Chair, and just want to echo the sentiments of the previous speakers. First of all, like the declaring interest of a number of family members who are nurses. I was there at a couple of picket lines, and I can say with confidence that there was widespread support from the general public, and that's despite what other people or newspaper people or cheerleaders for the Tories are saying. It's an absolute disgrace that health workers have to stand in freezing conditions for better wages and better working conditions. This is about the dismantling of the health service. The reality is that this process is costing people their lives, and it's an absolute disgrace. But it's not only, the health service. We have the postal workers, we have the housing executive workers, BT workers, and the list just goes on. And I think we have a duty as elected reps to show leadership, and that we need to be standing with the health workers, because if we don't, then future generations will have a price to pay.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor. And like others in this chamber, I want to send my solidarity to all workers who've been striking over recent weeks and months, in particular the strikes here on Monday and the ones planned for tomorrow for the healthcare workers. Mayor, I know I'll not go over a number of the issues that have been raised with here in this chamber, but like Councillor Tierney said, reasonable conditions is what they're looking for, and it's not a huge thing. We hear of student nurses here deciding not to continue on in that role because it is too much stress, too much pressure. It's not a living wage. It's not something that they can keep up with, and it's not something a lot of people can struggle with families through childcare, because of commitments to the healthcare service. Even though that they want to make sure that there are people, that they look after the patients, that they look after the sick within our city and our district. Mayor, I think at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, the housing executives workers are currently on strike. The healthcare workers are currently on strike. They need a minister and they need a budget like Alderman McCready. Sorry, Mayor. Alderman McCready says it needs a multi-year budget. This is not going to be done without the Assembly. This is not going to be done within Westminster. This is a gift that our government has to give. It's something that we have to have our MLAs around that table to decide. Mayor, when I joined this chamber in 2019, the healthcare workers were out on strike just to get pay parity with their counterparts within the UK. We're now at the exact same point, without an Assembly, without a functioning executive, and without our healthcare workers getting the pay that they deserve, and being able to have the safe measures put in place so that they could go about their day and feel valued. Mayor, happy to support, and thank you to Councillor Harkin for bringing this forward. I think it's something that we do have to continue to raise, and I know we will have that chance again on Monday when we have the special meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill, final speaker on this.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to declare an interest as an employee of the Western Health and Social Care Trust, I'll be brief because Councillor Harkin has covered most of what we want to say on this. But I suppose just to highlight that it has been a political decision to underfund our health and social care service. It's been a political decision to allow waiting lists to get to where they are, which is often 4 years for elective and straightforward procedures. It's been a political decision for our A&Es to be absolutely bunged and, to be cold black, I think, is what was described today on the radio. These political decisions, yep, a lot have come from Westminster, but Stormont has backed these decisions. When Robin Swan was Health Minister, he backed the pay cut, the real terms pay cut for health and social care workers when he was a minister. The DUP, although they are saying given support for the strikes, they backed the Tories in the underfunding and the privatisation of the health and social care service, and they're backing them to crush trade union action. And the only thing that's actually going to make a difference in terms of saving the health and social care service are the staff, because we know that if we don't do something about it, then nothing will be done. And I want to commend each and every worker who was out on strike on Monday, who's going out on strike on Thursday, because it's them that's making the difference inside the hospital and outside the hospital in that fight for the future of the health and social care service. And the general public are definitely back in the strike. Patients on the ward are back in the strike. I was talking to patients on Monday, and they were completely behind health and social care workers. And as Councillor Donnelly says, it is costing lives of patients, but it's also costing the lives and the well-being of staff. The pressures that staff are under are having a significant impact on their health and their well-being, and sometimes on their lives. So, I just want to say my solidarity, and we'll be there tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill, and thank you to everyone that has spoken. And I agree with absolutely everything that has been said. I wish to send my own solidarity to the workers, but I do need to declare an interest as well, as I have family working for the Trust in different capacities. So thank you. Moving on, next item of Chairperson's business, I'm going to bring in Alderman Devaney, who wants to make a number of changes to committees.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in, and I'll make a start here. I want to change for the Audit and Assurance Committee, replace David Ramsey with Nairee McMorris. And on Business and Culture, I want to replace David Ramsey with Alderman Drew Thompson. E&R Committee, I want to replace David Ramsey with Alderman Nairee McMorris. And then the internal ones then would be, Mayor, the Language Working Group, replace David Ramsey with Alderman Nairee McMorris. The next one is Advice Services Panel, replace David Ramsey with Nairee McMorris. And CCTV Partnership, replace David Ramsey with Nairee McMorris. And the City Centre Initiative, Committee of Board of City Centre Initiative, replace myself with Alderman Nairee McMorris. And the Advice Management Northwest, replace myself with Alderman Nairee McMorris. I've only a few left, Mayor. Look, the Arts and Culture Strategy Co-Design Group, replace David Ramsey with Alderman McMorris. The Graffiti Working Group, replace David Ramsey with Alderman Drew Thompson. And the Recycling Working Group, replace David Ramsey with myself, Alderman Devaney. And on the Board of CODA, I would like to replace myself with Alderman Nairee McMorris. You'll be glad to hear, Mayor, that's them all. Thank you very much for giving me the time.
Thank you for that, Alderman Devaney. Councillor Tierney, do you wish to make changes?
Yes, and Alderman McMorris will be glad to hear it's not her. There's no spaces left. She's on every other committee anyway. No, Mayor, last month I made a number of changes myself. One of them was to replace Councillor Sinoy Barr on the Audit, Assurance and Risk Committee with Councillor Angela Dobbins, but the committee section have sent an invitation, I understand, to Councillor Declan Norris to join the Audit Committee, so that can be changed. So it's Councillor Dobbins will replace Councillor Sinoy Barr on the Audit, Assurance and Risk. Thank you.
No problem, that's noted. Councillor Tierney, thank you. Okay, moving on to the open minutes of the meeting held on Wednesday, the 23rd of November. Could I get a proposer and seconder for accuracy?
So proposed, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor
On accuracy.
Devaney, and Alderman Hussey, you seconded for accuracy.
What's the point on accuracy?
Go ahead.
493/22, page 19. I need to go back to it again. Mayor, forgive me.
Could you give us
The proposal reads in the minutes as that one successful applicant from each DAA. I had understood that it was at least one successful applicant from each DAA. If I could have clarification.
Could you give me the reference number again?
Sorry, it's C493/22.
I'm being told that it is at least one.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, okay. Any other matters of accuracy? No. Okay, could I get a seconder for accuracy then? Councillor Jackson, thank you. Any matters arising from the minutes? Nope. Oh, sorry, Councillor Harden, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. It's in relation to C471, the return of council meetings to the Guildhall. And obviously, there's been an issue with people being able to access the gallery. Can we formally agree that the gallery is now open for people to be able to come in and witness and participate in the council meetings? I see no reason why we can't do it. So if we can, I would like to put that forward as a proposal.
Yeah, Councillor Harkin, I know that there has been a number of discussions in relation to that over the last couple of weeks. I've been part of some of them, and I think the overwhelming feeling is that if we're back in here, then the public gallery should be back in play as well. So I think that we're happy enough to move that forward.
Subject to 21, I think, is the capacity.
Okay, subject to the capacity, I've been told that the capacity is 21 at the minute. So, yeah, it will be open for 21 people, if we're ever lucky to get 21 people. Alderman McCready on this? No, okay. Any other matters arising? Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. Page 13, C483/22. The question to the Housing Executive reference solar panels. Has there been any comeback from the Housing Executive on that query?
You can follow up on that, Alderman Hussey.
I'd appreciate that, Mayor, and we appreciate this time of year.
Right.
That sort of thing should have been sorted out by the Housing Executive.
Yeah, we can follow up on that. Councillor Jackson, matters arising?
Yeah, Mayor, it's C482/22 on the Seagate employees. I'm just asking for an update. There was to be a follow-up meeting with Seagate management on the back of a meeting with council. So is there any update on that?
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I was going to provide an update in the minutes of the reconvened meeting, but I'm happy to do it here. I had a meeting penciled in the diary for Friday. Unfortunately, I have received correspondence today from Seagate to say that at this stage they don't feel that there is a need for a meeting. I will be corresponding back with them to ask again that we meet, because I think that it is very important in light of a lot of the issues that we have discussed and that we had discussed at the public meeting, that we do have an opportunity to discuss them with the Seagate management. There is a letter that has been sent to me. I am happy to share that with everyone in the chamber. So I'll get that emailed out from the Mayor's office, if that's okay. So at this stage, there is no meeting on Friday. We will go back to Seagate to seek further information and to seek a further meeting, because again, I do think that it's important that we do meet. Councillor Harkin on that.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jackson, for raising it, and thank you for the update, Mayor. And that's very disappointing that they've decided to, at this point, not meet with the council. I mean, it's been very confusing because, you know, they agreed to meet and then they cancelled the meeting. Now they're saying that they don't think it's necessary to meet with the council. I think that the issues that Seagate workers have been raising are very serious issues, and they deserve the council's attention. And I'm glad our council has taken such a proactive position in relation to the demand of a growing number of Seagate workers to join a trade union and to address issues of pay and conditions. You know, I assume that your letter will express our disappointment and hope that they rethink this. In my opinion, I don't think it looks very good for an organisation of Seagate standing to refuse a meeting with the council. I mean, we've had other organisations do that, and I think it was very disappointing when they did. It looks like they don't take us seriously. It looks like they don't want to discuss these issues. Have they anything to hide? I mean, what's the issue with councillors and the mayor and council expressing its opinion or getting more information about some of the issues that have been raised with us by Unite the Union and by Seagate workers? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the update. Like others, I'm disappointed that with the update that you had to give, given the fact that Seagate have responded to you saying that they feel that there's no need for a meeting at this stage, and that might well be their position, but the workers in Seagate, the elected members of this council, and the trade union movement, particularly in Unite, feel that there's a need for a meeting, and I think that needs to be relayed to Seagate in your correspondence with them. You know, we had a meeting with Seagate workers in the main hall in the Guildhall a number of weeks ago, and the concerns that they were raising were very clear. They were very strong about how they felt, and at that stage, they were left that meeting, in my opinion, satisfied and happy that as elected representatives, we were going to try and take their concerns and issues to the management. It now looks as if the management are trying to hide and not address these issues. We, as a council, should not be allowing them to hide. We need to make sure that we get an opportunity to raise their concerns, because although Seagate feel that they don't need a meeting with council, council feels that we need a meeting with Seagate, and we have a job to do on behalf of the workers on there who are constituents of ours, to make sure that we're addressing their concerns. And the SDLP fully support you, Mayor, going back and saying that we want to still seek a meeting with Seagate to address those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Alderman McCready and Alderman Hussey, I see, but I'm going to allow Councillor Jackson back in because he asked the question and I didn't allow him to respond to the answer. So, Councillor Jackson.
Well, and I suppose my response was summarised in the disappointment that's expressed by all our parties. It is extremely frustrating and disappointing that Seagate have declined the invitation, and I know, Mayor, you've agreed to go back and I suppose open up the discussions and explore having another meeting to be scheduled. I think we should maybe go a wee bit stronger than that and demand that Seagate listen to the views of this council, to listen to the views of the workers and the views of the trade unions, and I suppose emphasise the fact that council will continue to demand a meeting with the Seagate management until it actually takes place. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Alderman McCready. Alderman Hussey on this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I express my support for the comments that have come from the Chamber in regard to this subject? Members will remember that when the meeting with Seagate workers was requested, it was myself who requested that we would seek a meeting with management to allow open discussion. And I feel this is a deliberate snub, a disgraceful snub to this council. It's a snub on the first citizen. It's a snub on the members of this chamber who only want to hear all sides of the debate and indeed to put the case that has been put to them and was put very well by the workers. Those who were at the meeting know I didn't agree fully, but took on board all of the issues that were being put forward by the staff. And I don't think you can express strongly enough the hurt that is caused to elected representatives when a firm like Seagate and its management refuses to come along and engage with ourselves. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey, and thank you everyone who has spoken that. I will forward the correspondence around so that you are aware of what it says, but I do agree. I am hugely disappointed at the response. I did wish to have the meeting, and I do think it's important that we have those discussions. So I will follow that up through the Mayor's office. So thank you. Separate item, Alderman McCready.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item number C487/22. Conscious that we had a special council meeting, but in parallel we did agree to write to the Business Energy Industrial Strategy Board, brought forward by a member from the SDLP, Rory Farrell, was it? Yeah. Did we get a response? If so, any detail on the £400 commitment? Thanks, Mayor.
I've been told that the letters have gone, but there is no response yet, so we can follow up on that. Any further matters arising? Councillor O'Neill and then Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks, Mayor. It's just on for C478/22. Just around, that was around the death of the 2-year-old Ishak from mould and damp in the house. And, in a similar way for respiratory illness in the city and district, there was alarming news about the air quality levels, in the city there in the last week, because of the weather and because of the cold. And I think it's really important that we don't demonise, ordinary people who are trying to heat their homes, during this big freeze and during this cost of living crisis, because at the end of the day, it's a failure, again, by government that homes aren't properly retrofitted to actually ensure that we have heating efficiency. I think a third of the heat that we put into homes is lost because homes are very, very poorly insulated. And I seen there, there's fines for people using the wrong fuel in their homes. And I think, during this cost of living crisis, we need to review that policy around fining people for, burning fuel in their homes to try and keep themselves warm. I think right now, choice is out the window for so many people, and people are just doing their best to keep themselves and their families warm. So just on that point, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill, and I would agree with you on much of what you said, and I suppose some of the warnings that came yesterday from fire service in terms of deaths and fires, I would really worry about people going into the winter or continuing in the winter. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor. On a slightly separate issue, C49722, and it's Newton Stewart Town Centre regeneration, but it's just about town centre more than anything else, Mayor. It's just basically, I was out with the inner city assistance team there on Friday night and doing their usual rounds within our city, and late night kind of support. They do mental health support. They do Ask for Angela as well, and the great work that they were doing. But they highlighted a number of things to me, Mayor, and obviously it was very, very cold, but the likes of the Peace Gardens and the Waterloo Place where the picnic tables are was particularly bad, not just with ice, but actually with food and kind of rubbish laying about. And they were saying it's becoming a hotspot within, even up at the Diamond, where people are sitting about and kind of it becomes quite slippery. And I'm just wondering, I know not today, but obviously if officers could have a look at the responsibility of who it is to kind of keep those areas safe for people, because at 1 o'clock in the morning, not many people are aware of their footing, and it could be quite dangerous, especially in the cold weather. So just said I would raise that for them, and for any members that want to go out and do that walkabout with them in the evening, or even council officers do late Friday, Saturday night, they're more than happy to have anybody come along. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. That's noted. Councillor Gallagher. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. It was just on the same issue as Councillor O'Neill, and there was a warning went out from council around the £1,000 fines this week. I was a bit shocked when I seen it coming from council, because Strabane District Council was forming the policy. It was my understanding that there was a caveat that was within the policy, and that caveat was that people would be exempt from this policy if the house was suffering from fuel poverty. So when I seen this warning going out and it didn't have that caveat, I said to myself that there could be people in this city and district that would not light a fire because that's all they could afford to light, because they thought they were in breach of the policy. But if they're suffering from fuel poverty, then they're not in breach of the policy. And that was my understanding of Strabane's policy. So I think that that caveat should also go out from council, if it still exists within the policy, that if you're suffering from fuel policy, you're exempt from the policy. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. I'm not aware of a caveat in the policy. Is there? Or will we return to it? Return to it to be safer?
Say that the caveat exists within the council's enforcement policy generally.
Okay. Okay. Okay, we'll come back on it, but it generally exists in the policy. So we will come back with clarity. Any further matters arising from?
Sorry, Chair, just I didn't quite get what you.
Chair, there's a general, it's not within the policy per se, that the council's enforcement policy generally will take into account various factors, which might be deemed to be mitigation before making any decision as to whether or not it was going to take forward any prosecution. So that's across all the policies that falls within something that would be considered within the Enforcement Concordat generally.
Councillor Donnelly.
Thanks, Chair. And Chair, it's item C478/22, same as Councillor O'Neill's. I was indicating earlier, but you didn't see me. I think this is a problem. To see this issue regarding damp and mould, Chair, I think this is a lot more serious problem than a lot of people are realise. I had an article highlighted 2 homes in particular last week where both tenants who believe that their health, and in one case their children's health, have suffered because of the damp conditions in their homes. There's one man who had to move his bed into the sitting room, and following that article, and the housing association responsible made a response. But Chair, I've been contacted by both of them tenants, and the problems have got worse. In one case, one of the tenants sent me photographs last night of icicles inside their home, and I think it's an absolute disgrace. And at the last council meeting, we did pass a motion to write the housing executive and all housing associations operating in the district, and have we heard anything back from them? And if we haven't, could we contact them again as a matter of urgency, because it is only a matter of time before somebody is very seriously hurt or is killed as a result of this. Chair, both of these tenants have now, within the last 24 hours, contacted me and said that they both want a transfer. One family in the Brandywell are at their wits' end and have decided that they've given up, and I think it's an absolute disgrace, and that the housing associations responsible need to be held to account. Thank you.
Okay, I was about to say we don't have a response because it's not in our packs, but I've been told that there is a response there from them. But they came in just within the last 24 hours, so they're not in the packs. So they will be circulated.
Through the chair.
Yep, go ahead, Raymond. Is it on this? Oh, it's on Bresson, sorry.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Alderman Bresson.
There is a response, but it was too late to get into this council meeting. No, the housing executive has set up a review team, but there's a more detailed report, and the clerk's going to put it into the next council minutes for you.
Thank you, Alderman Bresson. Yeah, that's what I was just told and just said. So we'll get that circulated amongst everybody. Councillor Donnelly, would you like to respond?
Briefly, Chair, look, thank you. I think it's important that councillors get that information and are able to analyse it, because and I think council's environmental health will have an increasing role to play here. I know I've contacted them 3 times in the last week alone, and only this morning myself and Councillor Tierney were working together to deliver blow heaters to a person in the city too who will be vulnerable. So I think it's very, very important that we get this information and that we get back at it. Thank you.
Mr. Tierney on this?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. In relation to the information, we would appreciate getting that out as quickly as we can. We know and we accept that it may have come in late and was too late for the pack, but we would like to see it out. I've been dealing with a property in Chantallo who is suffering the same, and as Councillor Donnelly said, those people now have requested support to get a transfer. They, if they're lucky enough, will get transferred out of that house, but the problem will still exist within the house, and it's just leading another family to go through the process where they're told air the room, paint over it, and all of the steps that they're told to do it, until they get to a point where they can no longer put up with it. They want the transfer, and the same process happens again. So we need to look at that. And just on the point that Gary mentioned in relation to the work that we were doing this morning, again, a very vulnerable person who had lots of her own individual circumstances, but had no means whatsoever of heating her home. And that's unfortunately where we're at today. Thankfully, for the help that we were able to get from Gary and the people in the Craig Community Collective, she now has heat in her home. But that's one person across this district that we're aware of that reached out. How many aren't reaching out and are sitting at home cold because they're too proud to ask for help? That's the people that we need to be trying to get messages out to and trying to get information to. But in relation to that one individual, I want to send our thanks to the people, Gary and the people at the Craig Community Collective, for the help that they give her. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Mayor, and I suppose we all look forward to seeing the response that was alluded to earlier, and I think everybody around this chamber is dealing with issues arising from dampened properties. It's happening, and it is widespread right throughout our city and district. And it was alluded to, I think Councillor Donnelly alluded to the role of our environmental health team, and I know of 2 separate cases where there's very vulnerable people who had recent house visits from environmental health, and subsequent reports were to be sent to the housing executive for assessment, and the evidence, the damp conditions, to support the transfers. And I know that that as we're entering into the winter months and these conditions are being more prevalent and the impact from those the conditions are being more prevalent, there's increased workload on our environmental health team. But I think in terms of this, from this council, I think we want to emphasise the importance of a quick response from our environmental health team to evidence those damp conditions to the housing executive, because I know in one particular case there's that I've been dealing with, the person, the housing executive, that 2 weeks later there still hasn't been that correspondence received from environmental health. So the speed and it can't be emphasised enough. It's really important that the housing executive get that information as soon as possible to try and find suitable accommodation for vulnerable people. So, but we look forward to the information that has been alluded to. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor. And it's two issues related to this. I think we should, as a council, formally agree that anybody that is facing fuel poverty won't be subject to the £1,000 fine that is a legacy legislation or bill or motion in regard to the Strabane Council. I think that we have to take action on that, and we have to send out a clear message that we're not going to compound people's misery right now by hitting them with huge fines when they can't actually afford to heat their houses. So can we move that as a formal proposal? And then the second one is in relation to what Councillor Donnelly has raised, and I'm really glad he has. And I'm glad to see that this issue is getting the kind of proper attention it deserves, of damp and mould in people's houses. It is getting far worse at this time of year. We all know that. And there is a lot of people freezing at home with damp and mouldy houses. And I'm a bit worried that we need a bit more urgent action with the housing associations and with the housing executive. I would like to actually have a meeting with them. I don't think we need to do a special full council meeting. I think we can meet with the mayor and with every party and independents represented. But I think it would be, if we could get them all together and actually say, look, there's a serious issue here in the city and right across the district. And what some people are facing is just unacceptable. We want to see what can be done urgently to try and address this, because we do not, given how cold it is, given how many people are struggling to pay their bills, and that's the big issue right now. It's going to actually get worse because of damp and cold houses. We need those organisations to understand that there needs to be more urgency. So if we can agree to ask them for a meeting as soon as possible, I think that would show that the council actually understands the need for action in this.
Councillor Harkin, I'm going to have to take you back because you had two separate proposals. So the first one, if we could take that first, which is around the £1,000 fine, if you could just word that for us, and then if we could get a seconder for it. Oh, thank you.
Mayor and Member Harkin, I have a script for that because that's what I want to come in on. If I could maybe share it, and then if you can disregard or take it on, would that be admissible?
No, I'm sorry. Councillor Harkin's made a proposal. I'm going to let him word it. Can I get the wording? Okay, we have a proposal on the screen that is proposed by Councillor Harkin, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. I know that Alderman McCready wishes to speak to it.
Thanks, Mayor. It's I failed to interject earlier, but I'm glad Member Harkin and Member O'Neill has, specifically around this. There's enough pressure and strain and overbearance from, well, lack of overbearance from government and support, but there's always overbearance in terms of fines, whether that be from corporations such as, the BBC licence, where it can be a criminal offence, and everyone else out to get people who use literally on the breadline. And I think in this case, for us as a council to have a policy exemption is I would support wholeheartedly. And that exemption to that particular policy for those that are struggling to heat their homes, they don't need the fear of enforcement officers coming into their homes just because they're trying to heat their homes. So I think this is a good move, a positive move that I think we can all get behind and make life a little bit easier for those out there. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for Councillor Harkin for bringing this forward. I think it's a sensible move. It's something within our control. It's something that we can make sure people aren't penalised because they are facing dire times at this moment in time. I understand the impacts and the fact that we want to try and control this emissions so that pollution isn't too high, but at the same vein, like Councillor O'Neill said, due to the lack of infrastructure put into local social housing, it means people have no other choice. People have to turn to the cheapest option to even try and get the smallest bit of heat on it. So I don't think there should be any way in which we as a council should be prosecuting them because that they are currently at the moment struggling to even heat their homes. So I'm happy to support.
Thank you. Councillor McGowan.
It's on this area, but not specifically on this. It's just to say I agree with everything.
Sorry, we're on this proposal.
On this proposal, so
yeah.
on the moisture damp and.
Do you want to come back to it?
Yep.
We're just on the proposal. Okay. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Mayor, and very happy to see this on the table. And Mayor, I raised it, and I raised this issue quite a number of years ago when it first came out. And look, and we as a council, we have to acknowledge that we have to try and do everything we can to improve the air quality within the district. And that includes stuff around, the bonfires and all that type of stuff that does massive damage to the environment and the air quality. So we have to recognise that as well. But back in maybe 2008, 9, 10, in Strabane, this was raised, and was raised as an issue because fuel poverty was an issue in Strabane. It's an area of high deprivation, and people are suffering badly from heating their homes. And that there is an element of degrees of which a home should not fall below. And as I say, when I seen the message coming out this week, it just gave me a bit of a concern that I know, and I've been in houses that were freezing and people were feared to light a fire. And I was saying to them, light a fire, light it. If you can't afford nothing else, light it. And you'll be exempt from this policy. Because that's what we argued at the time. Now, it may have changed with Strabane and Derry amalgamating. That's what we argued at the time, that the council could not enforce a policy on someone who was suffering from poverty. And that's and where we find ourselves in now, where multinational companies making billions of pounds, and we're saying we're going to issue a £1,000 fine for some pensioner that might light a pair of shoes. Madness. We need to be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of the SDLP, we're happy to support the motion as is on the board. I would rather people light anything and stay warm than sit at home with the fear of a £1,000 fine, cold, to try and stick to this particular policy. The fact that, there is fuel poverty right across this council district and right across the north, we should be giving people £1,000 to try and heat their homes, not fining them for trying to heat their homes. We all know, anyone who's in contact with people at this minute, there's very, very few people at the minute that's not finding things difficult in terms of their own personal finances. Everyone is waiting on this £600, which we've already discussed, coming, and everybody wants to know a date when they can expect it. It's not because they want that particular amount of money or they want it free. They know that they can offset another bill with that money and look after themselves. But in relation to this particular one here, I would rather that people are warm and break a policy than cold to follow one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson, and then Councillor Alderman.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And just on behalf of Sinn Féin, we support the proposal that's in front of us. We as a council should be doing everything that we can do to support people that are struggling with the cost of living crisis, cost of energy crisis. And I know very recently I was on with an individual who was breaking up furniture. They burned to keep himself and his family warm. And it is disgraceful that we're discussing. Our people are resorting to such actions when there is money sitting in the executive to get out to help people with heating their homes at this time. But unfortunately, it can't be released. And that's a failure of government here. It's a failure of, and I don't want to rehearse the age-old argument of one particular party, but it is a sad reality that we're in. And we as a council can't persuade the DUP to get back to work. What we can do is we can avoid fining people who are struggling with, or refuse to fine people who are struggling to heat their homes. This proposal is something that we would just assume would happen anyway, in terms of our council's approach to supporting people through this cost of living crisis. But if it needs to be formalised, we're happy to support it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in, and we have no problem in supporting the proposal going forward here. We realise that the really inclement weather that we're having at the moment, and look, over the years, many of us used to burn turf, we used to burn logs, we used to burn coal, and all of that has been ruled out because of environmental issues. But I think the crisis we're in today, I think it's only prudent that these people who are having a crisis within their finances, that they're able to allow to burn enough to keep them warm anyway. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Devaney. Councillor Neil, last speaker.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think it's just important to make the point that those who are most vulnerable to the impacts of air pollution are those who are also most vulnerable to fuel poverty. It's generally, people who live in poorer areas and more deprived areas who, feel the impacts of poor air quality. And if we look at our, in Derry in particular, there's 2 junctions in Derry which have some of the worst levels of PM 2.5. That's the Marlborough area and also in Dales Corner. And, so much more needs to be done to address poor air quality, but the burden for that should not fall on ordinary people. When we look at the causative factors, yes, how we heat our homes is a major causative factor of air pollution, but nothing is being done to support people to have energy efficiency within their homes. Nothing's being done to actually make gas or oil, which are the standard heating ways of people for heating their home. Nothing's being done to make those means affordable. and nothing's been done as well around transport. Like transport is also another major contributing factor to poor air pollution, and government is not looking at massively investing in our public transport system, making it free, making it accessible, making it efficient. So like the burden of poor air quality needs to fall on government to actually take appropriate action and not fall on the burden of ordinary people who are freezing in their homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Neil. Councillor Donnelly.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, look, it's a no-brainer. This isn't about wealthy people looking to have ambience in their home by burning log fires. You know, ideally, people would love to hit a switch and have their home heated. The reality is that there's a huge issue here with landlords, and I'm going back to it. Landlords are not looking after their tenants. Some of the more reputable housing associations will tell tenants that their damp problem is a condensation problem and that turn your heat up and open your windows. What type of world are they living in? And that's if you get into your house. I know a single parent in the Waterside who got allocated a home 11 months ago, and him and his daughter haven't been able to move in. They did move in, but it was riddled with damp. They put down new floors, and 11 months later, they still aren't able to move into that home. So I think, you know, we fully support the motion, and it's time that these issues were dealt with in a proper and accountable way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. I'm going to ask Councillor Harkin if he wishes to sum up, even though it's just a proposal. But I'll give you that opportunity, Councillor Harkin. Okay, I believe that it's unanimous. I haven't heard anyone speak against it. I'm glad that we have been able to discuss this today. It is a really important issue that has been really affecting people right across the city and district. So I believe that it's unanimous. So glad to get that passed. The second issue, Councillor Harkin, was in relation to a meeting. I don't think that we need an actual proposal on it. I'll take that forward from the Mayor's office and get a meeting arranged on that issue. So last speaker on the item is Councillor McGowan. You wish to raise something else?
No, it's just to back up a lot of what Councillor Donnelly has said. For me, the surprising thing, I mean, damp and mould are both caused by too much moisture. One can be ingress or rising damp. But again, the thing that surprised me most is in the last couple of weeks, this has become, maybe in the last month or so, it's become very apparent that a number of housing associations have different approaches to this. Now, I've been in and out quite a few homes where the issue is basically circulation, and there's a refusal to do anything about that. And you do go into the home, you see no heat there, but you also see there's no way that air can circulate. So some of these homes are just badly designed. Now, if it was a business and environmental health went out and found a mould that some of us come across or damp, they would do an enforcement order. So I do think it's something as a council we need to get do a lot more on. And I know some councillors ring environmental health. That's something I would like to see increased. As we head into 2023, we need to arrest this problem. I was in a home recently, and they're talking about thermal boarding a bedroom, but it's taken them 8 months of the tenant raising it continually. And a lot of these homes are badly designed. I'm on about new homes, and they've refused, or they're unable to put a PIV system in because there's maybe somebody above them. So it's an issue, and it's becoming worse as people turn the heat off, and it is affecting people's health. And it's something I was surprised. I thought I might have found it in some of the older properties and maybe some of the private landlords who maybe don't look after their tenants. But what surprises me, it's in some of the new builds in my own district. And it's getting an engagement. So I do think we need the environmental health need to definitely be stronger in this. And I do think we need a meeting with housing associations. There's one in particular that if you mention mould, they immediately do something, but I'm not sure if the rest of them are doing that. But it is a big issue. It's affecting a lot of people, and it's something we need to have a strategy on.
Okay, thank you. I have two more speakers in relation to this item, so I would ask if anybody else wishes to speak in relation to this item, if they could indicate now, because we've spent a lot of time now. Councillor Logue and then Councillor Farrell.
Mayor, thank you, and I'll try to be as brief as I can. Look, The housing executive carried out a survey, not just in housing executive homes, but in other housing association homes and also private properties too as well. And the survey was around the insulation. That was done in, I think, 2017, and the survey results are quite startling. 80% of the houses. 80% of the houses, the insulation is failing. So on the back of that, I forwarded the actual results of the survey to our head of environmental health, the head of service environmental health, to allow the officers who would be visiting homes to make them aware that, you know, not everything that they see is condensation. I also spoke to the housing executive and housing associations and asked them to make themselves aware of this document too as well. In between times, we as a party have been meeting quite regularly with the housing executive, and I'm very happy to say now that they are coming up with a strategy to deal with their stock regarding the insulation, and we're very hopeful that that will be rolled out quite soon. But as Councillor McGowan said, there are other newer, relatively newer bills which you're seeing these problems in. And I think there is a reluctance on a lot of the housing associations to agree that it may be, it's not what the tenant is doing or not doing within the home that is causing these problems. So I think we have to have a very real conversation with the housing associations especially, and ask, are they aware of this survey that was carried out, that everything has a shelf life, including insulation. And, you know, just because you insulate a house, it doesn't last forever. So I think we really need to have a conversation around that. And just to finish off, Mayor, look, about 10 minutes before I came into this meeting, I took a phone call from a lady who lives in a sheltered accommodation not very far from here. And what she told me, her heat was on, but she had to put on her oven and open the door. I have since emailed that housing association because I am really, really concerned about the people living in that sheltered accommodation. They're all old, they're all elderly, and they all have their vulnerabilities. And so if there's somebody living in a sheltered accommodation with a type of heating that is not providing enough warmth that people feel they have to go to that measure to put on their oven and open their door, it's really, really stark. So just my phone on, so I'm hoping to get a phone call from that association because that is really, really concerning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Logue. Councillor Farrell.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and the SDLP fully support this meeting with the housing executive and housing associations to discuss the prevalence of damp, mould and condensation across properties right across the city and district. And I'm contacted personally every day about mould, damp and condensation, and if I look at my WhatsApps or look at my Facebook messages, it's photo after photo, video after video of these horrid conditions in houses, specifically in Derry. And in my experience, the housing executive are pretty responsive in tackling these issues, as are the housing associations, but where there's a massive, massive deficit is within the private rental sector and within the temporary accommodation, which is arranged by the housing executive, which is essentially private rental as well. So we can speak to the housing executive, we can speak to the housing associations, but there's a massive, massive percentage of houses that are substandard right across this city and district that won't be tackled for this meeting. So I think there needs to be some sort of focus, some sort of discussion in this meeting about what the housing executive can do to enforce standards in the temporary accommodation that they provide. And there needs to be an honest conversation about people that are private renting homes that aren't fit for purpose, that are paying 600, 700, 800 pound a month. They live in properties that are actually bad for their health, because that's not on at all. So that needs to be included in the agenda for this meeting, because I'm getting it every single day. And as the weather gets colder, the problem gets worse. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. In terms of that, absolutely. Temporary accommodation, housing executives paying for it, so they should be making sure that it's up to an adequate standard, and that needs to happen. Private rental sector, we probably need to include our environmental health within the meeting as well. Councillor Cusack, last person on this item on matters arising. Nobody else has indicated, so I'm going to Councillor Cusack for the last.
Don't worry, Mayor, thank you for letting me in. It was very briefly just to declare an interest, given we're talking about housing associations and I work for one in a sheltered scheme, so just to put that on record. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Okay, any further matters arising from any of the other items on the minutes? No. Okay, moving on to the confirmation of the open minutes of the reconvened meeting on Thursday, the 24th of November. A proposer and seconder for that, please.
So proposed, Alderman Devaney.
And Councillor Mooney, thank you, seconded. Any matters arising from that meeting? Nope. Okay, thank you. Item 9, confirmation of the open minutes of the special meeting held on Monday, the 5th of December at 4 p.m. If I could get a proposer and seconder for them. Proposed, Emma. Seconded, Councillor Tierney. Thank you. Any matters arising from that meeting? No. Item 10, confirmation of the open minutes of the special meeting held on, oh, it's the same meeting. Sorry, need to read ahead. Thank you, Councillor McGinley. And I'll go back to Councillor Tierney. Assume that's proposed and seconded. So moving on to item 11, which is the adoption of the open minutes of the following committees: bi-monthly assurance audit and risks.
Mayor, just can I beg your indulgence just briefly?
Yes.
Mayor, you'll be aware there was a special meeting of the planning committee held this morning. It was a bit of an emergency situation, had to be dealt with, but the minutes for that meeting, and I just want to seek some clarity from the city solicitor, the minutes for that meeting were actually issued prior to this meeting, so those minutes exist and will have been distributed to members of council, and I'm just wondering, would this meeting be the meeting that we might consider those minutes at this point?
Mayor, those minutes have been distributed to members at this stage so that the call-in period commences in relation to it, so that the action which arises from that meeting, which was delegated to the planning committee, can be implemented next week, assuming there's no call-in.
Thank you, Philip. Thanks for the clarity around that. And yes, now when you say it, yep, sounds right.
Thank you for that clarity. So the bi-monthly audit risk and assurance committee held on Monday, the 21st of November. Proposer and seconder for that. Proposed, Councillor Riley, seconded, Councillor McGowan. Any matters arising? No. Monthly governance and strategic planning meeting held on Tuesday, the 29th of November.
Proposed, Alderman Devaney.
Alderman Devaney. Sorry, Councillor McGinley had seconded here in the chamber. Matters arising. Alderman Hussey, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. GSP 194/22. It's the Austin's Task Force. We were asked to have nominations for this meeting. Firstly, it was remiss of me not to apologise for late arrival. Secondly, I was also to apologise that Alderman Guy couldn't be with us this afternoon. But can I name myself and Alderman Guy as the two representatives on that particular body? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, same issue?
Yeah, on the same issue, the two nominations for the task group on behalf of Sinn Féin is Councillor McGowan and Councillor Logue. Thanks, mate.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson?
Thank you, Mayor. And our two nominations will be myself and Councillor McKinney. Thank you.
Councillor Harkin, different issue, or are you looking to nominate as well?
Well, it's asked for two, so two, both of us, and it's a different issue.
Any other nominations, Councillor Cheney?
Well, I know you're looking at me, but obviously I haven't read the minutes, Mayor, because I've already done it at the committee. But just for your information, Mayor, it'll be myself and John Boyd.
Excellent, thank you for keeping me up to date.
Mayor Morris here. I would like to nominate Alderman Nairi McMorris and Alderman Drew Thompson on that committee to do with Austin's.
Morris, I'm sorry, we heard Alderman Nairi McMorris, but who was the second nominee?
Alderman Drew Thompson.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so separate issue. I'm going to Councillor Harkin.
Thanks, Mayor. I've got two issues. The first one is, and I'll do them separately, is GSP 187/22 in relation to radio foil. And I think our council's taken a very strong position in support of radio foil and opposed to the plans to slash funding there and lay off journalists and workers. And I think that the response by political parties and by community organisations and trade unions here in Derry and right across the district and right across Foyle in support of the radio station has been fantastic. And we have a very strong letter going to the interim director, Adam Smith, making the feelings of the council very, very clear. And we hope that he will come in here as well on the back of that motion to discuss with us our concerns about the future of Radio Foyle. People may have seen that the National Union of Journalists have now formally launched their Save Radio Foyle campaign. And I'm delighted to see that they're going to be hosting a meeting here on January 4th. I believe the Mayor is speaking at that. At 6:30 on January 4th. I hope that we as a council can promote that meeting far and wide because it very much fits with our own position of support for the radio station and for the journalists there. I would like to propose and ask the Mayor if we could make available in the Guildhall the petition that the NUJ have launched to save Radio Foyle. I think it would be good if people were able to physically sign that here, and it would be a sign as well of the seriousness with which we take the issue. I think that I'm concerned that BBC Radio Foyle bosses, that the interim director, Adam Smith, will think that there's been a wave of protest, but that'll peter out because people are busy with many, many other issues, like the ones we're discussing here. I think if we have that petition physically available for people to sign in the Guildhall and promote it online, it'll make sure that the issue isn't going to go anywhere, and it means also that people in the district and who come into the Guildhall can express their support for the campaign to protect and really it should be about extending Radio Foyle's presence here in the city and in the district. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. And yes, I have agreed to host and speak at the meeting here on the 4th of January. I look forward to a big attendance at the meeting. I know that we have all been unanimous in our support for Radio Foyle and for the continuation of it without cuts to services or jobs within it. So I would be happy just to take that as a proposal. I don't think that there would be anybody here who would object to that. So happy enough to take that forward. Alderman McCready, are you looking to speak on this issue? Yes, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Fantastic proposal. My question in specific regard to the letter that we sent to the interim director of the BBC, did we get a response in writing, Mayor?
Alderman McCready, we don't have a response in the pack. So I'm assuming if there is one, it has come in very late. If there's one there, we will circulate it. Thank you. Any further speakers on Radio Foyle? Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, no, I suppose just on the minutes, it was the chair of the committee, Councillor McGinley, who raised our shock at the news of the cuts to Radio Foil, and on behalf of Sinn Féin, we recognise the importance, particularly the importance of the breakfast show and the local news that many of the citizens of our city and district rely on Radio Foil for. Any reduction of services needs to be opposed in the strongest possible way, and we as a party are fully behind that campaign. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor. And I suppose thanks to Councillor Harkin for raising this issue. We were glad that our proposal through Councillor Farrell at the meeting was supported, and we were able to get that letter off to the interim director. Our local MP, Colin Eastwood, has raised this issue with the Prime Minister in the House of Commons, and at that particular time the Prime Minister gave a commitment that he would raise the issue around BBC Radio Foil with the BBC, and supported Colin's call for more local opportunities on that particular channel. We're fully supportive of Radio Foil, and like others, we would like to see more local programming on it, rather than at 9 o'clock switching over to listen to Stephen Nolan. We would much rather listen to someone from the Northwest more locally, dealing with more local issues. Anyone who has been, and I have had, I suppose, the unfortunate opportunity of being on the Nolan programme and raising issues, local issues, around bonfires, around difficult times in the merchant season and all of that there. And they just don't get it in terms of a local base. They just don't understand, in my opinion, Derry and the makeup of it. And they almost try to sensationalise stories which the local community, through ourselves and support from community workers and residents, can deal with, rather than sensationalise them. So I would much rather that Radio Foil had more Northwest focus right throughout the day, not a less and reduced Northwest focus, and that's what's going to happen if the breakfast programme and the news bulletins are taken away from us. Not only the impact that that's going to have on journalists at that up at Radio Foil, and we all know that journalist opportunities are few and far between. Journalist opportunities in the Northwest are even less. So we have to do all we can to support it. The SDLP are committed to that. We've given our full support to the staff at Radio Foil, and we've raised this at every possible opportunity we can, and we will continue to do so until the BBC look for, I think it's 420 grand they're looking to save. I'm sure that can be saved and somewhere else across the BBC, in particular salaries that people are receiving and stuff like that there, not from ripping to shreds a local radio station. So we will fully support Radio Foil and making sure that we can do all we can to protect the services that it provides in the Northwest. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in. I'd just like to support everything that the rest of the speakers have said in relation to the issue and around Radio Foil. Our party totally supports the retention of Radio Foil and the show that they have on here daily up until lunchtime. And our fight is to retain that. And I think it was Councillor Tierney said, despite retaining it, we should be trying to grow it. But look, very, very happy to support the fight to retain Radio Foil, and very, very supportive of the staff. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. You literally held your hand up on time. Go ahead.
Well, then I'll keep it as short as I possibly can, Mayor. Thanks for letting me in. And I just wanted to reflect on a number of matters in relation to this. I mean, the figures that have been mentioned, £420,000 are in and around that. Last week, actually, I was kind of doing the back of the cigarette packet number, and then, ironically enough, I wasn't terribly sure of what it transpired to be. And it really is, when you bear in mind the BBC budget in Northern Ireland to be 55 million, it really is genuinely a drop in that particular ocean. It's 8 people's jobs, as we already know. And I think, one of the phrases we all hear is, all politics is local. All news is local too. And I think everybody in this chamber in particular will appreciate the importance of being able to communicate across community, between communities and about the community. The removal of the flagship breakfast programme at Radio Foyle will be the removal of a very significant opportunity for people's voices across our community to be heard. And it's quite flabbergasting when you bear in mind the Radio Foyle's breakfast programme is an award-winning breakfast programme, and no disrespect to Good Morning Ulster, or GAMU as they call it. I don't recall it ever actually having won one award for its broadcasting output. However, I suppose these things are subjective. And I think, it's very heartening, and I know, having spoken to a number of the journalists here at Radio Foyle, I know it's very heartening for them to know that they have the level of support from this chamber and from across political representation. And again, it's worth reiterating that and I know that everybody here will do their best to try and turn this around. But I have a question for the BBC, and it's probably a question that perhaps you could put to them or somebody could put to them. I'll do it myself at the public meeting. And that is, did they think to offer an opportunity for voluntary redundancy across the board at BBC Northern Ireland? They have over 600 employees, and I don't think they did that. I think they literally came down with a sword of Damocles and decided that there were going to be jobs cut in this city. And we're all far too used to that approach to services here in this city. And this service is as important to us as any other service. And again, it's one of those things I hear. We're all hearing it. I'll cut it short, but I mean, we're all hearing it. People here are saying this is Belfast coming down again, and just literally chop, 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 and we're the first to get it. And people who live and work here are the first to get it as well. So I just thought it important to say that, Mayor. But I don't even know if they offered that opportunity, because there's a workforce in Belfast. There's 600 there, and they're all, I know for a fact. They probably could have found the 38 jobs in Belfast and didn't even if they touch a job in Derry.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. Councillor Harkin, you had a second issue.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, GSP 19522. Look, I just wanted to raise the issue of our emergency fuel support programme. And first of all, I want to thank everybody, and I'm sure we can all agree, that helped to roll it out. I think that we've been now made aware that there was 5,500 applications, and that the programme obviously had to close down well within 8 hours, and that speaks to the scale of need right across our district, and that should be no surprise to any of us, and that hopefully it looks like some people will start receiving the fuel support this week. I think that we will need to have a review of the rollout. I have heard, I've been told, and people have made it clear that there was issues with accessing the form. There was issues with the website. And I think we should, formally acknowledge that, and hopefully it won't mean that some people have lost out because they weren't able to properly access the website or the form. I know that people were frustrated with that. And I think that there's a lot of disappointed people around the district as well who were hoping to apply and weren't able to, who maybe thought it would be open longer than it was. And given that there was 5,500 people and we were only going to be able to help 2,405, there's going to be quite a few people disappointed as well who will meet the criteria. I think that we as a council, as we said at the special council meeting on Friday, need to double down in terms of our efforts to try and win or get delivered the £600 from Westminster that's been agreed. I think we have to ratchet up efforts, and I think that the rollout of the hardship fund, should bring a sense of urgency to that as well. I think that urgency exists for the vast majority of people here, but maybe for the DUP, this can bring them a better and a sharper sense of urgency too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Any further matters arising? Alderman McCready, had you another item that you wish to raise? No, you're fine. Okay. Any further items from Councillor Neil?
Thank you, Mayor. And it was on GSP 195/22 as well, but just on the cost of living crisis. And this morning, the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, who have been a leading research voice in terms of poverty, across these islands, they released a new report, Going Under and Going Without, Joseph Rowntree Foundation's cost of living tracker. And so it was just launched today, and it was absolutely devastating. But unfortunately, no surprise given the crisis that we know we're in. It's based on data from October this year. So, we know that things have got so much worse since then. And the reality really is so bleak for many. So just to kind of highlight a few points from the report. So across the UK, they say 7.2 million households are going without essentials, and 4.7 million households are in arrears of at least one of their bills. The report found that those who are facing the worst are those in the bottom 20% of incomes, where a quarter of households are going without essentials. And they particularly highlighted young people, so people aged 18 to 24, who I think are often forgotten in the cost of living crisis, as people who are really struggling. So 91% of young people in low-income households are going without essentials, and 25% of those in private rentals are experiencing a high risk of eviction as we enter the winter months. So there's stat after stat, which is absolutely harrowing. And, rather than me try to explain it, I just wanted to propose that, given the launch of this report today, could we invite the Joseph Rowntree Foundation to a special meeting of Council in the new year to highlight the statistics from this report. Within the report launched today, they didn't break down the regional statistics from it, but we all know that the poverty faced in the north, and particularly in this council district, is much worse than other areas on these islands. So I have that proposal written down. So just would like.
No, I'm happy to take that, Councillor Neil. So no, that's fine. But could you also maybe circulate the report to member services, and we can get that round people as well? So
no bother.
That everybody has access to.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any further matters arising? Nope. Okay. Moving on to monthly business and culture committee held on the 6th of December. A proposer and seconder.
Proposed, Alderman Devaney.
And seconded by Councillor McGowan in the chamber. Thank you. Any matters arising from business and culture? Okay. Moving on to monthly environment regeneration, held on Wednesday, the 7th of December. A proposer and seconder for accuracy, Councillor O'Reilly, seconded by.
Under accuracy, Chair.
Accuracy. Go ahead, Councillor McKee.
ER 282/22. The sale of PSNI lands at Castlederg. Just top of page 96, it says Councillor McHugh continued to state that he contacted the group to seek their intentions for the purchase of the site. That should really read that I contacted Development Trust Northern Ireland to try and ascertain details about the group. At no time did I contact the group directly because nobody knew who they were.
Thank you, Councillor McHugh. That will be noted and changed. Accuracy? No. No. So could I get a seconder now for accuracy? Councillor Ferguson, thank you. Any matters arising? Councillor McHugh?
Same issue, Chair. Chair, as you'll be aware, I had raised this issue several times on Council about the sale of the former PSNI site in Castlederg. Just for members' information, that was discussed at the Policing Board last week, and the Policing Board decided by a vote of 8-7 to sell the former land to Dergan District Cultural Association. Chair, I just think it's worth noting again that I think it's an absolute disgrace that such a strategic site in the heart of Castlederg can be offloaded to a group that nobody that I'm aware of knows who they are. They've certainly no history of developing land, and as I say, it's such a strategic site in Castlederrick, and I've been contacted by other community groups who say, you know, when they're looking to draw down any funding, you know, the amount of red tape that they have to go through is unbelievable. But getting all a group that who I'm not aware, only they will know if they're conscious of it or not, but I do know they're not registered with Charities Trust Northern Ireland as yet. So I don't see how the policing board could make a decision to sell such a prominent piece of land to an unknown group. There has been allegations made that they're a front for the Orange Order. Whether those allegations are true or not remains to be seen, but it's worth pointing out that that only feeds into the suspicion in the community within Castlederrick that whatever intentions the group have for that site, and they may well be honourable, I don't know, but I highly doubt it, but that whatever it is, that it certainly won't benefit the entire community of Castlederrick, Chair. So I think that's highly concerning, and what's even more concerning is the fact that it was relayed to me by the Development Trust Northern Ireland that when I contacted them to try and ascertain who this group was that they were working with to try and purchase the site, that it was stated to me that in fact it was a councillor on this council who was representing the group. At best, Chair, he must have been either a conduit for the group, or at worst he was a member of the group. But he at no stage made any declaration of interest, both at full council or at Environment and Regeneration, until that was pointed out to him last week. So, Chair, I think that's concerning as well. And it's even more gone that we had a report from an officer stating that this council, having expressed an interest on the site, had been working with Apex, or at least expressed an interest to work with Apex to see what council could bring to the table in terms of the development of social housing on the site, and whatever then in turn council could maybe complement it with. That, in fact, that means you had a councillor who was actually at best representing a group who were competing with, I suppose, councils and Apex's interests. So remains to be seen why the councillor didn't declare an interest, but I think it's important to highlight it here again. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McHugh. Councillor Donnelly, on this?
Yeah, same issue, Chair. Chair, look, first of all, I'd like to commend Councillor McHugh for bringing this to attention of Council and the wider public. Effectively, what we have is we have a shadowy group, believed to be a front for another group, political group. Some would describe it as a sectarian group. We've had a chair who sat and said nothing about his links to this said shadowy group. We then had the policing board that proceeded to facilitate this group to acquire property. And Chair, that only confirms to those of us who believe that the policing board is discredited and it's a fake accountability body. I'd also like to tie in the silence from groups like the PCSP, which also confirms to me that they're effectively toothless and complicit in this type of nefarious activities. As Councillor McHugh pointed out, and anybody involved in the community and voluntary sector, the amount of hoops that people have to go through, even to get a bank account, you know, regarding constitution, charity numbers. I'm involved in the community group, and I think it took 7 years to get a charity number. You have to give details of AGMs and positions of who holds office in this. And the reality is, Chair, as Councillor McHugh pointed out, this will not benefit the whole community. We've talked extensively in this council about the problems with housing, the lack of housing, you know, and we're dealing with it as councillors day and daily. For this to happen, you know, it has. Anybody I've talked to are saying it's an absolute disgrace, and unfortunately, this council is now implicated in all of that, and you know, and it questions the integrity of this council and its processes. People in here earlier on declared that if they had a sister or a wife who was a nurse in a conversation But yet this went out public where a chair sat and said absolutely nothing, and that chair was the link between the shadowy group. It's unbelievable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Alderman McCready on this issue, separate issue. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to point out first and foremost that if he were, Councillor Stephen Edwards was unwell, and if he was here today, would have been speaking on this on our behalf. Councillor Edwards has raised this with me and with Councillor Riley for quite some time, that it was looking as if the policing board were going to give this land to a group which no one in Castlederg apparently knew of. And he has assured me that he has spoken to a wide range of people from both the nationalist and the unionist community in and around Castlederg, and has struggled to find out if this group or organisation even exists. Now, I have to say, and I take my hat off to Councillor McHugh for the work that he done around this, and I suppose we were as surprised as the chair of the E&R committee whenever Councillor McHugh made his revelations at that particular committee. But I think it's only right that it was raised and that concerns have been raised. I have raised on many occasions a conflict of interest, where I'm not even sure if I have an actual conflict of interest, but just to keep the process right, I do it anyway, just to be upfront and transparent. I done it today when we're talking about a strike that my wife will be taking part in tomorrow. No direct conflict for me, but just to be upfront. I don't understand, and for the life of me, cannot understand. It's not, and councillors here from every party and none, in my opinion, if you're not involved with and working with community groups within your DAA, then in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, you're not doing your job properly, because the community workers and the community organisations within your community are there to support your constituents. So it is only right that you work hand in hand with them. I can't understand why you wouldn't declare that interest if you've got it. If Mayor, you will know if something comes up in this meeting about Chantal Community Residents Association, I have no direct involvement with the organisation, but I speak to them quite regular and would declare that particular interest. If I was ringing an organisation who were potentially going to be looking at giving land or selling land to Chantal Community Residents Association, I would be declaring. I don't understand why it didn't happen. And I suppose the particular councillor in question will, at some point, make that known, I would hope. But I think Councillor Donnelly's right. I think it calls into question, and it shines a bad light, in my opinion, on council. If it looks as if we're having backroom conversations around land for an organisation which no one yet has told me or any member of our party whether this organisation actually exists or not. That causes serious alarm bells for us. In relation to the land actually going to the organisation, as I say, we don't know a whole lot about them. We would have far preferred to see social housing going in that particular area. As people will know, I don't have a great understanding of Castlederg or the needs of that community, but I know people who do. And I don't know of too many houses that are lying empty, or that everybody in Castlederg is living in a safe home. I'm sure Castlederg, like every other part of this council district, would have been more than happy to see houses, social houses, going into that particular area. So there's a number of questions, in our opinion, which cause alarm at this. I'm only too glad that our representative on the policing board was able to vote against this the following day, and we went down that road, and that's mainly because of the work, and I hasten to say the nagging that Councillor Edwards done to the rest of us to make sure that we were across the detail. I'm glad he did, and I'm glad that at several occasions where he needed to, that he was able to say that he had been digging into this to try and find out what was going on. But there's questions that needs to be answered around this particular thing, and I think, in our opinion, having social housing in that particular area would have been better than potentially having nothing but landlocking the particular area for whatever reason this organisation want to do it. And just on Councillor McHugh's point, Mayor, and I know you're trying to speed me up, I'm coming to it. I'm involved with an organisation and councillors from every party and independents are also there who set up in this city to help people who are bereaved by road traffic accidents. Great work they do. Fantastic work they do. Reach out to everybody right across our community. 3.5 years they waited for a charity number and they were lobbying everyone, including the former First Minister, Arlene Foster, to try and get it pushed through before they could draw down a penny. This organisation, according to the information that was released at the ENR committee, have none of that. And the policing board are able to work with them. I don't know how. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in. And I spoke at this and around the ENR meeting. And I do have to say, look, surely the policing board and those members were across this coming forward to him. And it's, look, you know, I don't know the whole history of it. I'm not on the policing board or in around that. But the other parties who are complaining here today, those who have members on, surely the policing board has a process. There's bound to be checks and balances and around a group, no matter who that group would be, that's looking to acquire a building that they have put up for sale, and around that, you know, we need I believe, look, they must have reached, the group must have reached the criteria to be able to access to buy the PSNI station in Castleberg. And for me, you know, from a Sinn Féin perspective that is raised, I believe and around the whole issue, it's just Sir Grips and around Sinn Féin, because they maybe weren't aware of how things were going, but they have raised the issue. But, you know, for some other councillors here to talk about shadowy groups, I think when we read the media at the moment and around shadowy groups, criminality groups, and a court cases going on in Dublin, there is a lot of people involved with what I would say shadowy groups are allegedly, and I will say the word allegedly, involved, and we'll see how that pans out. But Mayor, once again, I believe, look, I'm sure the group went through the process of putting in intentions to buy it. I'm sure that they must have reached the criteria and they must have tick boxed and around that. And that's all I have to say, Mayor.
Councillor Barr.
Thank you, Chair. There needs to be more clarity around this issue. On the information presented, there's an obvious lack of transparency. Maybe sinister is too strong a word to be using, but nevertheless, it's a word which has been used widely by concerned members of the public. In my opinion, the whole business merits further investigation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Mayor. Like others, I'd like to thank Councillor McHugh. I wasn't at the last meeting, but I watched it, and I have to say the decorum that Councillor McHugh showed at that meeting was very admirable. I also heard Councillor Hussey on the radio, and I think he's been a councillor for 20 plus years, and he had trouble knowing who this group was. So when we hear the word sinister grouping and all that, it sort of puzzles me how he wasn't aware who they were. But there's a number of questions that probably need asked. One, is this the reality of gerrymandering in 2022? Because that's what it looks like. That's what it sounds like. And that's what it is. And that's what will come out, is what exactly it is. And I think that the people of Castleberg are going to suffer for that. But I think the question that I haven't heard asked is, what is the corporate position of this council going to do to overturn this? It's been well identified of the needs in Castleberg. It's been well identified about the partnership that this council wants to take forward. Are we just going to sit back and say, this is sinister, this is dark, this is whatever? How did this group get it? How did this group get whatever it's supposed to have get, and that it's appeared out of nowhere? How much did they pay, or how much are they going to pay? Where did that money come from? I'm not sure of too many community groups in this district that have thousands of pounds to hand out just to landlock a piece of ground. But I'll go back to it and I'll say across this chamber, what is the corporate position of this council? Can we take a judicial review? Can we block this? We need to find a corporate position of this council to say we're doing something to stop this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was very disappointed at Alderman Devaney's remarks. And I think I watched the same programme that he did, which was Spotlight last night, that focused on loyalist paramilitaries targeting people going to food banks for loans, and then outrageous inflation of those loans. So that's what that's what he might have been referring to. But on this, I think that there's a number of issues. I mean, obviously, I think that there's a serious breach here of conflict of interest at the council. We have health workers in here who announce their connections to the health service out of a sense of being open and upfront. But I don't believe they actually need to be quite honest. But fair play to them for doing it. We have another instance here of where there needed to be clarity about an alderman's role. So I think we have to have a look at that. I think it's up to us as a council or as individual councillors to press this as a code of conduct issue. I think if our code of conduct is going to mean anything, we have to actually do something about it. Otherwise, there is no conflict that is going to matter anymore if we don't take this issue forward. I think we should. Secondly, I think that there's a very serious. I think it looks very bad for the council, as Councillor Donnelly has said. So I think we have to be proactive on it. The impartiality of the policing board, I think, has been thrown into serious question. That's not an impartial decision. I think that this is a political decision. And it raises questions about the policing board. Those questions have been raised before, but I think that this only throws it into the spotlight once again. And the last one is, as other councillors have spoken to, the issue of what this land is going to be used for. We're crying out for building more housing, and there's an organisation that has managed to get a hold of this land that nobody knows what they do. They don't know what it's for. And there is, and that's just, that strikes me as an injustice and a serious problem. So I want to second Councillor Gallagher's proposal that we take a corporate position on this, that we look at all avenues as a council to stop this from moving forward. And if Councillor Gallagher wants to write up formal proposal as he outlined, we'll be happy to support it, because I think that needs to be the next step. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to Councillor McKee for raising this again. Mayor, Alderman Devaney said about Shirley that all representation within the policing board should have had their questions answered. I know for a fact from talking to my two reps, they didn't have the questions answered. This vote was postponed so that more clarity could be sought. And the fact that you can see that 7 members voted against and 8 members voted for could show you that there was unanswered questions within this policing board. Mayor, I think it nevertheless doesn't matter. We understand that there's a need for social housing, but without getting into the details of the applications, I think there is a need for transparency and there's a need for clarity, and to make sure that this group is completely clear and transparent in how it's getting its money and what are the plans for the police station in the future. So I think Councillor Devaney is wrong in what he's saying, that there was checks and balances and a tick box exercise done in making sure that this goes through, because I know a number of our members and a number of our reps weren't happy because they had these unanswered questions. So I do think I'd like to explore what we could do within council to possibly aid to make sure that this is transparent going forward, because gone are the days where it is just a political decision to wave things through. I think we have to be clear and see what the plans are for this police station. So happy to support any proposal coming forward.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. I suppose I'd better declare at the start that I'm a member of the Orange Order, a very proud member of the Orange Order. And I'll make it clear that I am of the strong opinion, as are many, that the Orange Order is just as much a community association and organisation as any other. However, the suggestion is made that the Orange Order have bought this or whatever. I've made inquiries around the lodges in my area and at a district level. The Orange Order have not purchased or been granted the opportunity of purchasing the site. And I wonder about the objections to it. If it was the Ancient Order of Hibernians who had purchased the site and I was to object, I wonder what the cry would be throughout the chamber. I'd be accused of being sectarian in what I was trying to do. I think to get back to the reality, during the debate in the E&R committee, Councillor McHugh rightly referred to this site as a prime site. I suppose one of the questions is, yes, it's a prime site, but what is the ideal use for it? There are those who feel social housing would be an ideal use. There are those who feel, like myself, and I've said this before, that this is a prime site on the edge of our town centre. And to me, an economic development within that site would be more advantageous to Castlederg and its surrounds. The increased economic activity means increased footfall. Increased footfall is beneficial to the businesses in Castlederg itself. I'm just wondering, why all this opposition is coming forward. There are two issues. There's the issue of declarations of interest, and there's the issue of the site and its future use. I would firmly believe that officers from council should be endeavouring their best to now engage with this group, find out what are they planning to do with the site. And if it is, as I suspect, an economic development, they should be supporting that. An economic development that will bring employment to our area. Chair, I'm concerned at the way council is trying, in this particular case, to stymie the development of a site that has been an eyesore in our town centre, on the edge of our town centre for a long, long time. There's a group that has come forward and been accepted by the vendors, in this particular case, the policing board, as a suitable organisation or suitable plans. And I presume the policing board were made aware of that, what their plans may have been, etc. So I'm concerned as to how this motion will come forward to council and how council will deal with it. But, the people of Castlederg need jobs as much as anybody else. People who live in houses do need employment. It's a chicken and egg situation in reality. I would prefer the council would engage with the presently successful bidders and see what they can do to enhance the economic well-being of our town. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. And just before I go on to the next speaker, because there's a list of speakers still looking in, I have been quite lenient at this meeting in terms of speaking time, and I have let people speak because we don't have motions. But I'm also conscious that this meeting is going to end at 6 o'clock, and I don't want to be back here tomorrow. So if you don't want to be back here tomorrow, keep your remarks brief. Councillor McGowan.
I've just listened there, and it's I'm baffled. For me, the main issue here is public confidence. I think all of us sit in this chamber and we debate and we fall out and we disagree and we support or whatever we do. But public confidence is very important for every single one of us. Now, we have a council at the moment which is under investigation, and we certainly don't want to go down that route. So for me, the point is, if there's a member who sits in chamber and hears what other people are proposing for a site, and here's other people who are interested in a site and doesn't declare an interest at that point, then the question for me is, have they gained an advantage in sitting in that room? Has the information that they've heard, has it given them an advantage? That is what I'm interested in. I really don't care who develops the site, what group it is. I'm just concerned at how clandestine this is. It's the best kept secret. No one knows who this is. So for me, it comes back to public confidence and elected members. And I don't know, because the councillor that we're talking about is very quiet on this. But if I'm sitting in a meeting and something comes up and I'm working with another group and something else, I leave that room, I declare that interest. And that has to be something that we uphold here, because we all sit in different committees. So that's the question for me. I'm not against any group, but all I'm asking is that is something that I need more information on, because I certainly don't want to be part of something if people are sitting in rooms hearing things and they have a plan B or they're in another bid. If it happened out there in the private sector, you'd be in court. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGowan. Now, I have two people who have indicated a question and a point of clarification. Both have spoken before, so I'm going to ask you to be to the point, and then I'm going to bring in Councillor Gallagher with the proposal that's on the screen.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that was retold. And I will be to the point. I only want to make the point, first of all, before I ask my question, that I'm, like Councillor Harkin, shocked but not surprised of the response from Alderman Devaney. However, I want to just double check with the city solicitor, and I see the proposal has just come on the screen. Is there an opportunity for council to call in a decision made by the policing board? Because I understand that whenever this vote was taken, there was a bit of a handling at the policing board around it, where the chair went for the recommendation rather than allowing an opportunity for an alternative or an amendment to the recommendation. Now, they might not follow the same procedures as council. I appreciate that. But I know that that was called into question at the board. So I'm wondering, is there a possibility that we could call in that decision based on the process and then work in tandem with Councillor Gallagher's proposal? And in relation to the proposal, to try and speed things up, because I've already been warned twice, we have no issue in supporting it, because we want to see the best use for this land, and we want to see an open and transparent way that this land is disposed of. And as I've already pointed out, we have got some serious concerns around it. So for those reasons, we're happy to support the proposal when you come to it, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. And I will assume that you happy to address some of the points that have been raised by Councillor Tierney?
Mayor, the answer is simply that not that I am aware.
Thank you. And Alderman Devaney, if you could keep your point of clarification very brief as well.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me back in. And I want to go back to what Councillor Ferguson stated and around the belt and braces and around the checks and balances. I never said that the checks and balances were to make sure this went through. What I was saying very clearly was there must have been checks and balances that this group made the criteria. And I suppose one very important thing, Mayor, in all of this, our council was not the decision-making body in this. You know, this was the policing board that made this. Thank you, Mayor. And just, Mayor, before I move on, look, very clearly, we will not be supporting this proposal.
Thank you, Alderman Devaney. And I am going to go now to the proposal, but I see Councillor McHugh has indicated. I'm assuming you are indicating to second.
Yeah, Chair, and
Yeah.
just one.
Before bringing in to make a point, I'm going to bring in Councillor Gallagher and then I'll bring you in.
Okay, no problem.
Go ahead, Councillor Gallagher.
Yeah, Chair, as read, and it's been well debated, and I won't keep it back too long, but I think it is very important that this council has a corporate position on this decision, and I would be asking all the members that's in the chamber, I support this. Thank you.
You, Councillor McHugh.
I'm a good chair, and on seconded the motion, I want to thank Councillor Gallagher for tabling it. Just want to make a brief comment. What Councillor McGowan had said there is essentially the crux of this matter, so it is. But I just want to clarify, and members' heads, when public land is put up for sale, it goes through what's known as a D1 process, and essentially it's offered first of all to other government departments and community groups. So there's no private interest is afforded an opportunity to purchase at that stage of the sale. So this group, having not even been registered with Charities A&I, were afforded an advantage over other groups who may have been interested in purchasing it. Now, it may be the case that they're in the process of registering with Charities A&I, but essentially they haven't went through that process. So it's just an important fact for members to reflect on. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Harkin on the proposal.
We support the proposal, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Gallagher for bringing it forward. And I didn't do this when I spoke to the issue, first of all, but I also want to thank Councillor McHugh for his work on it. I think it's very important that this has been brought to light, and it clearly wasn't easy to do that. And just in relation to some of the comments that were made about, the AO hitch or whatever, what matters here is what the organisation is going to do with the land. That's the key thing. That should be, what is the purpose? What is your plan? It's the merit of what you're going to do with the plan. And right now, the problem with this is that there's a lack of clarity. There's a lack of transparency. And that goes right from the discussions that we've had here at the council. Why wasn't there more clarity about who was involved here at the council? And now that has went right through to the policing board. So, we need to, I think that this is a motion that I hope everybody will back. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Sir, just briefly, they say that some fans support the proposal, and again, commend the work that Councillor McHugh carried out. They shine a light on the murkiness of this deal. But in terms of the proposal and opposing that, trying to reverse the decision of the policing board, our party is completely supportive of it.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. No further speakers, so I'm going to ask the Chief Executive to take us through a vote.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Breslin.
Against.
Alderman Devaney.
Against.
Alderman Hussey.
Against.
Alderman Carrigan. Alderman McCready.
Yes.
Alderman McNorris.
Against.
Alderman Thompson.
Against.
Councillor Raymond Barr.
For.
Councillor John Boyle.
For.
Councillor Michaela Boyle.
For.
Councillor Carr. Councillor Cusick.
For.
Councillor Dobbins. Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Duffy.
For.
Councillor Farrell.
For.
Councillor Ferguson.
For.
Councillor Gallagher.
For.
Councillor Harkin.
For.
Councillor Heaney.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Logue. Councillor McGinley.
For.
Councillor McGowan.
For.
Councillor McHugh. Councillor Mooney. Councillor Norris.
For.
Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Riley. Councillor Sinead Barr. Councillor Tierney. Thank you, members. Are there any other members? Okay. Mayor, I've recorded 23 for and 6 against, so the proposal passes.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Okay, and moving on, any further matters arising from ENR?
Yeah.
Alderman Hussey. Sorry. Okay. Thank you. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. ENR 286, Newton Stewart regeneration on page 101. And it's really just to thank particularly Tony Monaghan, who very quickly came in on the back of the sold out notice that went up from Eventbrite about the regeneration programme or the regeneration event that will be held on this issue. Just to thank Tony for that. There was a fear that there was going to be a limit on people attending this event. That appears not to be the case. I think the limit now, the upper limit is 120. So hopefully that will go ahead. But I just want to point out one other error, which has been pointed out to me just about half an hour ago. The advertisement from Eventbrite says Monday, the 18th of January. The 18th of January is a Wednesday. So if somebody can ensure that that advertisement for the event is sorted out.
No problem. That's noted. Any other matters arising? Alderman McCready.
Thanks, Mayor. Item ER 285/22, my boy update. A letter was sent to DERA to invite the officials to update members. And secondly, an additional letter to the NI Water to request an update. Question is, both parties going to co-present? Will they co-present in this chamber, and has a date been set? Thanks.
Through you, Chair, members, we have received correspondence back from DERA to say that they're happy to attend and give a presentation to the committee. They have said that the sentencing hearing in relation to the trial hasn't completed, and they will come following that. So we will make arrangements to deal with them. In terms of Northern Ireland Water, we had specifically written to Northern Ireland Water in order to ask for their feedback in relation to members' concerns that were raised. We haven't yet had a response back from NI Water, and if members want NI Water to attend the committee, we can certainly extend the invitation when we arrange that. That's no problem.
Thank you, Karen. Any further matters arising from ENR? Nope. Folks, I am going to take a 5-minute recess and we'll come back at half, which is probably 6 minutes. So we'll come back in 6 minutes. Oh, Johnny, you feeling any better? You look better. You look
I was only Monday and Tuesday last week.
Oh.
The rest of the days I work from home. I was coughing and spluttering.
Yeah.
Terrible.
That mic's on there.
We need to sit it up there.
Okay, members, so just to reconvene with the monthly Health and Community Committee held on the 8th of December. If I could get a proposer and seconder. Thank you, Councillor Alderman Devaney and Councillor Farrell, second. Any matters arising from Health and Communities? Okay. Reconvened meeting of Health and Communities held on Friday the 9th. If I could get a proposer and seconder. Councillor Farrell proposed, seconder Councillor McGinley. And any matters arising from the reconvened meeting? Yep. Okay, thank you. And now item 12 is the updated capital projects for approval. And I'm going to hand over to Alfie.
Mayor, can I just declare an interest, please, in CRG 0322?
Thank you, Mayor. Members, the report is for you to consider an updated capital project approval report, and that's further to consideration and issues raised at this month's Governance and Strategic Planning Committee. And ultimately, the objective is to allow progression of a number of critical capital projects across the district. Members, it's a fairly comprehensive report, the most of which essentially was the report on the Governance and Strategic Planning Committee, covering 4 issues. Firstly, capital project updates and approvals. Secondly, repairs and renewals. Third, master plans. And fourth, Peace Plus applications. So the key update really to the report is in respect of item 1, capital project updates and approvals. At a very high level, you'll obviously be aware of the extent of our capital programme, with over 75 million of projects now completed since the new council came into being. A further almost £250 million funding secured through City Deal and Inclusive Future Fund, and a separate report was presented to this month's committee on an update on those. A further over 96 million of projects which are now substantially advanced on site or have substantial external funding secured and funding targets to be met. And these projects are set out in Appendix 4. And beyond that, a further in excess of 137 million of projects which were trying to progress and ongoing discussions with funders, and those projects are set out in Appendix 5. And they include the strategic leisure aspirations. And at this point, we have ring-fenced as council over 31 million of funding towards these projects. So obviously, since previous reports in relation to capital, we have been faced with significant pressures.
Mr. Gog, your iPad is interfering.
We've been faced with increased pressures in relation to borrowing costs, construction inflation, and the increased revenue implications of some of the capital projects we're progressing. So as a result of that, and in order to ensure that the projects in Appendix 4 can continue to be fully financed, as well as our commitment to the Appendix 5 projects of over 31 million, as highlighted, that would have a rates implication of 1.1%, which is slightly different, higher than the amount presented to Governance and Strategic Planning Committee, and that's set out in section 3.9 of the report. Members, the report has been updated to address issues raised in the committee in respect of the Daisyfield Hub project as well as the Gas Yard project. And in relation to that latter project, it's welcome news that additional funding has now been secured to bridge the shortfall. And members, detailed update reports in respect of all the projects are appended CRG 05 to CRG 1322. So in terms of the district rates impact, obviously we're working alongside this with the Finance Working Group to see how that can be reduced or mitigated. And there's a further meeting of that group this Friday. So members, the other aspects of the report, repairs and renewals, obviously we have a substantial programme of repairs and renewals, some projects which are fully funded and progressing, and other projects which were progressing in line with the funding we have available at this point in time. And
The third element of the report, members' master plans. Obviously, there's been a range of council motions over the last while, and officers are progressing a number of master plans across the district, and a table has been set out in section 3.17 of the report for you to update you in progress with that. And finally, members, in relation to Peace Plus applications, the report sets out that obviously this is a key emerging funding opportunity for us. The report sets out the criteria, and in line with those criteria, officers have developed a short list of 5 projects that we're proposing that further work is carried out on in the coming weeks, with a view to ultimately submitting 1 application. So, and that will also take into account, members, any applications within the district from external organisations. So a report will come back in due course once that further work has been done to propose the final submission. So, members, the financial implications have been highlighted. Obviously, beyond that, we as part of the rates process, we need to update our medium-term financing strategy to ensure the shortfalls in funding for our major strategic projects and those projects in Appendix 5 that will likely require additional funding in due course. So, members, the recommendation is that you're asked to approve the additional capital funding required and the additional rates investment to fund that capital requirement, and that's really to ensure all our Appendix 4 projects remain fully funded and that we can maintain our commitment of over 31 million to the Appendix 5 projects. You're asked to note the updated position in respect of our strategic leisure projects and our remaining capital aspirations, and approve the progression of the projects identified in section 3.1 with a view to submission of applications under the Peace Plus programme. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alfie. 2 speakers indicated so far, Councillor Logue and Councillor McHugh.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you, Alfie. Look, I know a lot of work has gone into this, and there's a lot of work still to do. And I want to thank you, Alfie, for doing this along with the Capital Working Group and bringing back this more positive report. I want to, if I can propose all the projects on the last 4 en bloc, because would that be okay? I think it's looking for approval for them all, and I welcome all the projects that are going to proceed, and hopefully the other ones in the number 5 list won't be too long after them. It is good that the gas yard have sourced that additional money that they needed to finish their project. But I'm also very glad that the Daisy Field is going to go ahead as planned in its entirety. It is much needed, as all the other projects, but the user groups there have waited very, very patiently for many years, waiting for this, and I know they will be all delighted to hear that this is going to go ahead as planned this year. And I just want to finish off by thanking all Alfie and all the officers regarding this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Logue. Councillor McHugh.
Chair or Mayor, just to declare an interest as a member of the Derg Active Steering Group and a member of Peace Plus, and also an unpeculiar interest as a member of Castle Dergs and GAA. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McHugh.
Mayor, I am on the board of Triax too, so
thank you. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. And like Councillor McHugh, declaration Derg Active. And Derby Football Club also involved in that. A couple of questions. Firstly, Castleberg Town Centre regeneration. Of course, we have the levelling up proposals for Castleberg Town Centre as well. Is that a separate scenario, or are the two working together? It doesn't label on it there, apportion the two within that, but I've seen an indication from the Chief Executive which indicates that it's the levelling up funding that we're talking about there. Right, that's grand. Just for that clarification, page 151, Riverine Foot and Cycle Bridge. And it's with regard to Riverine in general, and I raised this issue yesterday, as you know yourself, Chief Executive, and Karen Phillips knows as well, about concerns, ongoing concerns, developing concerns with regard to Riverine. The footbridge, which to me was the core element in that, has been removed. We're aware of the difficulties that were existent there with regard to landing sites on either side of the river for that. What does concern me is that I'm getting vibes from people who were brought in to the project because it's an SEUPB project. There's a requirement for community buy-in from both parts of the community. And those who come in along the east bank, I suppose, of the Foyle to support that, and I know Councillor Gallagher did a lot of work on that as well to help keep that project on track. But I'm being told now that there are people who are saying that they're washing their hands of it. They just want to back away people from the PUL community along that east bank. The project has reduced down to an area of wetland. Originally, there was car parking and other facilities to be provided on the Strabane side of the Riverine project. The Lifford project is more or less intact, and we've lost the bridge. So I have to express those concerns about that. And my concerns were shared, as those who were there yesterday know, by representatives from Donegal County Council, and I had a conversation with John McLaughlin, Chief Executive of Donegal County Council, and very clearly they had their concerns about the overall integrity of the project. And I feel that greater animation, greater support to the animators is needed there to pull that back on course. The issue of the bridge may be resolved via Peace Plus, and I feel that Donegal County Council may have a contribution to make with regard to the Peace Plus aspect of that. But to raise those points and to seek comment from officers on the current status and how they feel, is there a danger to that project going forward? I know the A5 ramifications have had knock-on effect on proposals and plans, but at the same time, the folk on the Strabane side of this project need to see the benefit, and some people need to be assured that they weren't just put in there as token representatives to get this project over the line. Thank you, Mayor.
Yep. Okay,
Chair, I think the comments are noted. As members know, papers were sent out today to joint membership of the Finance Working Group and the Capital Working Group for a meeting on Friday. And as part of that agenda, there will be an update on the fairly complex issues associated with the Riverine project at that meeting. So from an officer perspective, I think we need to reserve comment until we get into that meeting on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Alfie and his team and the team around the Capital Development Group for this paper. I suppose, first of all, I'll declare an interest as a member of a council appointee on the Peace Plus board. But at governance and strategic planning, we had some concerns around that particular paper, which Alfie and I had spoken about in the interim period. And I think it's welcome news that the gas yard have managed to get their funding from an external body, and that council are not at this point anyway being asked to contribute to that. And I think that's good, and fair play to the folk at the gas yard for continuing on and being able to do that. In relation to other concerns that we had, particularly around the Daisy field, again, we're glad to see that those have been ironed out in the interim time. At the committee, I spoke about the user groups there and the fact that, a number of them are now housed in what was considered at the time to be temporary accommodation. For Oakleaf Boxing Club, for example, it has become their home, and everyone associated with that club now looks at that as their home. Hopefully it'll not be too long before they have a new home in the Daisy Field and instead of their building. We're only too happy to support the recommendations at 5.1. And Mayor, apologies, I don't think you've got a seconder, so if you don't, I'm happy to do it on behalf of the SDLP. We're fully committed to making sure that the project at the Daisy Field in particular, but all of the projects are rolled out as quickly as possible, and that we see as much funding as we can coming from external sources and not relying on loans or rich commitments from council. So from our point of view, it was a good idea and a good proposal at the time to hold the paper back. We could get further work on it and some clarity around it. And I think now doing that and the work that has been done by Alfie and others in the interim time will give council a certain degree of confidence that we are now moving forward in a positive and committed way, particularly around the Daisy Field project, which people have waited on for so long. It was going to be A, then it reverted to B, and now hopefully it's back to A again. And the user groups there will benefit from that, but also so will the wider community and in around that particular part of the Brandywell. So we're only too happy to support, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney, for seconding. Councillor Heaney.
Thanks, Mayor. And like others, I'd like to thank Alfie and for all the work on this and welcome the approach. I'm sorry, just to declare an interest as a member of the Peace Plus board also. Just as you will know from the last working group meeting and from governance, like there was a fair amount of discussion. As someone who represents a DEA who has two major capital projects on Appendix 5, which is the one, and we had much discussion about how those groups could be reassured that that funding is still there and that their dreams and projects for these badly needed facilities is still on track. I think this approach does give them that comfort, so I welcome it on that basis. And suppose just to ask and request that the work the council does with those groups in terms of the wider process in relation to planning and others continues to progress, so that when the funding is required that they're ready to do it. And obviously they will continue to look for external funding also. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Heaney. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to go back to Councillor Hussey's, someone has remarks about the Riverine project. I'm disappointed to hear that members maybe of the PUL are getting disinterested, but I would be very happy to engage with those groups and have a conversation around this Riverine. There's no foreshore license, so there's no bridge at this current time. And I think that this council needs to be proactively talking up this project as one project. It's not one side of the river or another side. It is one project. And that's the way this council, since its inception, has advocated this project. It's one project. We've run into a difficulty, technical difficulty, around we can't build the bridge at this current time. But SUAB have given some assurances that the bridge will be included under Peace Plus. And that's what we need to be driving as a project for the Northwest. And as you said, there was a lot of work done. It was unbelievable the many groups that signed under this project, the value of this project, seen the value of this project, and want to see this project delivered. So we need to be talking it up And if there's anybody that's getting disillusioned, council should be proactively saying, get back in the room, let's get this project and let's get it back on where it is. But the first and foremost is we need the licence to be allowed to build this bridge. So that's what we need to be working at in the interim period. And hopefully in 2024, we will see the bridge getting completed and the project getting completed as one project. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, just, sorry, if you beg me my position, I think it's, and as a councillor for the Strabane area and some of the work that was going on, that if you would allow, Mayor, that this council would send condolences to Mr. James Elliott, who passed away last week, who would have been playing a very important role in the future of this project getting carried out. Unfortunately, he passed away, but I think that, and probably across the Strabane district as a whole, that was playing a very important role, and it would be good if this council acknowledged that. Condolences to his family. Thank you, Mayor.
I endorse that, Mayor.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know he had passed until, unfortunately, it was too late. So, absolutely no problem saying condolences there as well to James and his family. Councillor Harkin and then Councillor Boyle.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, we welcome progress with capital projects. It's going to benefit people right across our district. And we also welcome, that external funding has been found, and we need more of that. We also think that these projects, as they are developed, need to benefit everybody and be inclusive for everybody in the community. And we'll keep repeating that in terms of things that we support through the council need to be all inclusive for communities. The second point I wanted to make is that this is we have a very ambitious capital programme. And this is about developing our district and trying to make it the place that our residents deserve it to be. And there was a very interesting report came out today about the economic benefits of Queen's, where Queen's University commissioned a study, and they found that Queen's University generated £3 billion for the UK economy in 2021, which is a staggering amount of money. And that the new Ulster University campus that's been opened up at great cost in Belfast is estimated to be able to generate in the region of 1.5 billion per year. That's £4.5 billion getting generated, through those institutions in Belfast. And there was an earlier paper about the city deal. We remain, as people before profit, I'm sure others, very uncomfortable about the fact that through the city deal, Ulster University received £84 million of the funding. And we have absolutely no mechanisms as a council to hold Ulster University accountable for the pledges that both the Stormont has made, the British government and the Irish government, and at times Ulster University have made about the progress of McGee. But it does, the fact that £84 million that we are basically providing for McGee for expansion, and then that doesn't even what Ulster University is putting into McGee doesn't even amount to the loan, the bailout loan that Ulster University got from Stormont. And when you look at the kind of economic impact that both Queen's and Ulster University have in Belfast, you can see why this is a massive issue for our city and district and for the council that we cannot leave alone. And I just think that there is still a massive disparity there, a very clear massive disparity in the way that Ulster University is treating this council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Your point's noted. Councillor Michaela Boyle.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in. Just briefly on the Riverine Community Park. Mayor, I was listening to the Chief Executive's comments there and understanding the sensitivities around the issue in terms of the technicalities around the bridge element. The project obviously consists of a public park, and we're well aware of the details and the design in that regard. And the bridge element, as other has said, is critical and it's key to the whole project and to the success of the project. I do believe this council is committed to the full delivery of the park. The project is now approaching some issues, and there have been a number of challenges, obviously, to the delivery of that project. So I do believe that the intention of this council is to see this through in regards to the licence for the bridge element. I remember, and I said it before in council meetings like this, Pat Doherty, the MP back a long time ago in the old Strabane council area, and others would be aware of this. We went out and we sought and we found members of the PUL community to engage from the border areas in regards to the project. It wasn't without its difficulties then, but I do believe that people did come forward, and in terms of the Donegal County Council area and in terms of the both partners. So the application covering the whole of the works in terms of the bridge, as I said, I do know there's difficulties, but we have to do all we can in terms of the preparation of the construction of this, because this is very key. People in our area in Strabane are waiting for this to happen. It's a shining light in terms of a park that we don't have and that we badly need in terms of the footfall on the border area. So in terms of the required timing of this, and that, I'm sure we'll all allow the council, both councils, Derry City and Strabane and Donegal County Council, the time and the space to do what they have to do. But I would urge that everything on this council is done on its power and with our partners in Donegal, to ensure that that there's no significant risk to this project, and that the bridge element, as I said, the sensitivities around that, but it's key, and we need to understand that that we could be waiting responses from other agencies and that to come forward, and we hope that happens in the not too distant future. So just to echo what others have said, in particular Councillor Gallagher and his remarks, it is key, and we need to make sure that this project is delivered as soon as it is possibly necessary to do so. So thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. So no further speakers, and those reports are proposed and seconded en bloc by Councillor Logue and Councillor Tierney. So thank you for that. We will move now into confidential. Proposed.